everyone. I am Alex Dixon, Business Director at DEPT, and I'm joined today by Jack Pawley, Senior Social Media Manager at Just Eat Takeaway. Our business has been working together for 10 years, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if we've got a clicker to change the slides, maybe. Thank you. That would help. And you're probably right in saying Just Eat are best known for your kind of global brand campaigns, right? Snoop Dogg, Katy Perry, last year Christina Aguilera and Latte, which is quite an amazing lineup. But today we're talking about a campaign around a key strategic initiative, which you internally call Local Heroes, which is all about kind of like independent restaurants that sit on Just Eat, that really are at the heart of communities and cultures across the UK. I'm kind of right in saying it's quite a special campaign that we worked on, right? Not only kind of record watch times, but if we look at the sales data, we've seen kind of uplifts of about 136% for some of these restaurants on the platform, which is amazing. But Jack, take us back to the start. Take us back to kind of the brief and challenge you came to us with, and what do we kind of set out to do together?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately we're trying to drive more orders here, but to be able to do that we need to shift consideration, we need to drive consideration and sort of do that through shifting like our perceptions, kind of driving favourability. So I guess the challenge that we've got is that we have those perception issues. We are known for the traditional takeaway moments, your Friday, Saturday night sort of moments. We did a bit of qual research, and some of the feedback was someone described us as a late night booty call of the takeaway world, which is obviously kind of not what we want to be known for. But so job of this was to sort of shift those perceptions, and to do that we lent into the local heroes, and local heroes are the backbone of kind of Just Eat. We've got thousands of them on the platform, and with that many, there's some real quality that's in there which can kind of really open up sort of new ordering moments and shift those perceptions for us.
Yeah, and I suppose when we first started looking at this campaign, we were kind of working off this one insight really that we got to of like what makes these local heroes really, really special. And the insight we were looking at is that food made with love and passion, it really hits differently. I think we can probably all agree that food is deeply personal. It's not something, well, it's something very considered, right? It's more than just what you put on the end of your fork or you pick up with your hands. It's something which is the energy, the emotion, the people, communities behind it. And we were kind of working on that. We wanted to get that essence across in what we were doing. So, enter Home the Hotspots. Now, Home the Hotspots is a campaign that at its core is a content docuseries that really gives these restaurants, these local heroes, a platform. And that platform, hopefully, to thrive on Just Eat, but also to tell their story, to make sure that we're coming across in the right way, we're elevating them, but also it's told and brought to life through creativity. So, Jack, tell us a bit more about how we kind of landed on Local Heroes.
I mean, so the Local Heroes are, like I said, that backbone, but it was searching for them within sort of Just Eat and like a bit of a challenge trying to find the right ones. So we use sort of, I guess, internal data to kind of like find those Local Heroes lists, and you go off kind of the customer like I guess reviews, the sort of the amount of orders that are being driven by those. But ultimately, as you get into that, there are still some that are those traditional takeaways, and I think what we needed to do was get that brief out into sort of the creatives and let them explore and find ones that are suitable for marketing. You can check their social profiles, but making sure that they've got the right brand, but also stories to tell. And when we met with some of these local heroes, like, we wanted to sit down and understand their story and make sure that there was something that we could kind of tell for them.
And kind of right in saying it's been a huge success, hasn't it? Talk us through some of the results.
Yeah, I mean, the reach has been fantastic, but like I said, to drive that sort of consideration and shift those perceptions, we need people spending time with the brand and kind of spending time with the content. We know that the longer someone spends with content, the bigger shifts in consideration and the brand lifts that we see. So, I mean, these episodes are about 1.5 minutes long, and to have average watch times of about 60 seconds within the paid activity is incredible. It's results that we've not seen before. I mean, our benchmarks before this were probably like 10 to 15 seconds, so absolutely smashing those out of the water. And then, that was kind of like I guess that average watch time, but we want to see more from the brand lifts, and we ran brand lifts across some of the other platforms, and on Meta we've seen a 4% increase in favourability as well, showing that the content's really doing its job.
And we talk as an industry a lot about short form content, 6-second ads, first 2 seconds, get your branding in, but with a 90-second ad with a 60-second average watch time, that's powerful stuff. What do you think the role of longer form content, not only for Just Eat, but I suppose for brands out here as well?
Yeah, I think you need to have a diversification in the creative that you've got. Like, people consume content in so many different ways now, and I think when you get into that longer form content, it needs to be stuff that is going to be entertaining, that they want to spend time with. It's not really an ad now, it's got to be entertaining, and I think with that we kind of let the brand take a little, kind of sit back and kind of tell the stories of the platform so that people enjoy watching it. It needs to be authentic for it to work.
And I suppose, for Just Eat, we've looked at the awareness numbers for this, and you have very distinctive brand assets. So whether that could be the house logo, whether it's the distinctive brand orange or the mnemonic, did somebody say, which we won't sing, but maybe later. They're very distinctive in the market. So actually moving away from that, potentially, and I suppose we spoke about this a lot when we were doing it, and creatively, it's quite a leap, wasn't it, when we were looking at this campaign? Talk us through how that kind of worked.
Yeah, so I mean, we're trying to shift perceptions here.
Yeah.
We're not really going to do that in the world of social if we're relying on kind of the brand assets that we're known for there. So I think we have to push the brand guidelines a little bit. But keep it inherently Just Eat as well at the same time. So testing kind of different levels of branding and how much needs to come through. Because at the end of this, we still need that association with Just Eat as much as a story we're telling for these brands.
Yeah, and hopefully it will play. It's not playing. But I think really importantly, we've spoken about creativity and the kind of narrative and the story we're trying to tell, but I think ultimately also the execution is so important to drive that effectiveness, and as you can see on screen, there's lots of different kind of visual elements that we brought to the table here, I suppose around art direction, but talk us through the different kind of elements that we kind of really focused on for this campaign.
Yeah, I think ultimately where this is going is it's going to be on the social channels on YouTube. We're competing for the attention, for engagement, but that's with all the food content that's out there. And we need to show our expertise in this area. So we're competing with the creators, the restaurants, even sort of TV shows like The Bear, and the quality of the food that is being shown on those. So with this, we opted for a bit more of a premium approach to the production, kind of built this whole sort of creative world around home with the hotspots with a really lovely burn effect. You can see the orange coming through, talk about those brand assets. But what's really nice about this is that within this creative wrapper, we can tailor it to the different sort of cultural moments and communities that we're sort of showing through this content. So each episode has its own sort of unique graphics that come through. We changed the grade for each one to kind of represent what the different locations that we're filming in. But also what's really nice is that to kind of really connect with culture through this is that we can tailor each episode to sort of the cultural moments through the year. So the third episode here is Yaspin, which is a really great coffee shop that's up in Macclesfield, and two fantastic owners, and that really leaned into sort of the Pride Month. And we got Sandro in as well, who's obviously on Bake Off, who great sort of representative of that community. So.
Yeah, and I think it's lovely bringing those elements in. And ultimately, you've spoken about food, right? Food is the end product, not necessarily what Just Eat sells, the provider, the platform, but we need to make sure that when we are showing up in that space, it's really, really connecting with that audience. And we talk a lot about, I suppose, creativity and that narrative or art direction to drive effectiveness. And we can talk about how we bring creative and media together. But anyone knows that a campaign, there's lots of different elements that kind of made up for it, of kind of its success, I suppose. So talk us through the different elements that made this successful and kind of having that business impact at Just Eat.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you touched on it there. The food is kind of like at the front and centre of this, but it's not just the food. Like, food connects people, and to do that and to make it more authentic, we need to connect with the communities, connect through culture, and I think it's tying all of those dots together. So I think one key part to this was bringing these creators in, across social, across YouTube. People are listening to brands a bit less, and they're listening to creators more, influencers more. And I think having them come in as sort of the voice of this campaign kind of added that layer of authenticity, particularly being able to tailor them to the episodes. So the first episode we had a brilliant guy called Fat Sam Eats. Definitely check out his handles and what he does. But the first couple of episodes were based in Manchester, and he is such a Manchester lad.
Yeah.
Like, really understood it. We walked in and he knew the owners like straight away. But I think just bringing that in to be the voice and bringing that authenticity, it just connected everything together really nicely.
Yeah, and it's a really lovely story, isn't it? That you've got these local heroes, these restaurants, and then you've got creators or influencers or talent mixing in, and then I suppose Jet enabling it. But how do you go and select your creators or influencers? What was the process? Because I think a lot of the times brands worry, we're thinking about brand safety, right? Or who's the best connection? Are they ambassadors? How do you approach Just Eat?
Yeah, so we work closely with you guys, and we get a selection together. You're not picking influencers and creators purely on their followers.
Yep.
You've got to make sure that they are right for the brand, that they're right for the story that you're trying to tell. But what we found that was really great was kind of giving them screen tests and making sure that they were suitable for hosting and could do this. Some of it comes quite natural to them, but I guess this isn't creators in the typical sense. We use them widely across Just Eat, kind of having them produce as a almost arm of production for us and doing content that way. But this time we brought them in as, I guess, talent, almost like hosts of the content, and kind of guided them through. I guess that gives us more control of the brand in that sense.
Yeah. And I suppose we've given everyone a whistle-stop tour of Home of the Hotspots. But ultimately, going through a campaign, whether you're agency side, client side, there's a lot of learnings or lessons to be learned. So for you, going through this process, what are the kind of key takeouts?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think probably three for me. The first is just being clear on that sort of objective and what you're trying to drive. I mean, Local Heroes is sort of embedded as a really key sort of business strategic objective for us, trying to drive orders with them, shift those perceptions. And I think knowing that we were going into this with sort of a docuseries sort of approach, we needed the confidence to have that longevity to kind of give us that freedom to go off and kind of build this, but also have that ability to sort of test and learn it as we go on. The second one is sort of adapting to the audience. Don't be afraid to sort of change those brand guidelines, sort of try and push them a little bit. But also you need to adapt them specifically for the channels. You're not just building one size fits all. Like, we ran 90s across YouTube as like sort of the hero, but that's not going to work on Reels, it's not going to work on TikTok. But even still, you can't just do cut downs then. So we've been exploring the idea of like behind the scenes and trying to get creators to kind of do a little bit more than just that sort of hosting bit. So that we kind of have that sort of really nice selection of assets. I talked about like diversifying creative. That's kind of exactly what you need to do within this. And then the third one is aligning creative and media. Kind of the best results that we've had is when our creative and media teams work really closely together. Obviously we have both through you. But I think what we're doing is that after each episode, the media team are kind of really talking to the creative team, kind of telling them like all the learnings, and that really kind of creates a really nice cycle that each episode can hopefully get better and better because we can implement the learnings that we've got from the previous episode. Yeah,
and I think that's so important, that last point, the real combining it and bringing them in early, right? We always make sure at DEPT that the media team are the first people to be talking with the creatives. We try as much as possible. So thanks everyone, thanks for listening. Hopefully there are a few elements that you could take into similar processes or campaigns or projects that you're doing at the moment as well. We might have some questions, we'll see what Jeff says, but Jack and I are going to be milling around at the DEPT Garden House, which is just over there, so if you've got any questions, come up to us, be more than happy to kind of run through them as well.
Thanks both, I'm really hungry now. Do you know what, you've got no questions, which means you've blown them all away and you've got a full house. If anyone's got a question, please ask it now. Otherwise I'm going to ask some stupid ones. What was your favourite sandwich?
You go first.
Yeah, great question. I mean, the guys at Northern Soul were fantastic in Manchester, so if you're up there, definitely check them out. Their mac and cheese pulled pork sandwich was excellent.
Amazing. Nice. Well, either the app's broken or no one wants to know anything more. So thank you both.
Perfect.
Brilliant.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Jack Fawley and Alex Dixon.